So when working in the lab, you must wear full PPE, and that must be a lab coat and latex gloves. Each lab practical will have a risk assessment and COSH paperwork, which includes the chemicals in use. All this paperwork is found online, and if you ever have any doubts, the lab practicals are supervised by members of lecturing staff, and you must ask questions if you ever have any doubts or any questions you may need answering. Today's tutorial, we're going to go through the KM test, the Kastle-Meyer test, which is a presumptive test for blood staining. This is a 3-part solution. So you have 3 bottles. So you have the first bottle is an ethanol bottle, the Kastle-Meyer solution, followed by the hydrogen peroxide. How you perform this test is you need a filter paper and a known blood sample. So we use a known, in this case, horse blood. And you get a piece of filter paper, you fold it in half and fold it again until you get like a point made. You simply rub your filter paper onto your known blood sample and you unfold it, and as you can see where the folds are, you'll see a very, very small red-brown staining which is from our known blood sample. You apply 1 drop or 2 drops, doesn't really matter, of ethanol, and that breaks open the actual cells, the red blood cell. You then follow up by 1 or 2 drops of your Kastle-Meyer solution, and then finally you put 1 or 2 drops of your hydrogen peroxide. If there's a colour reaction from colourless to a pink colour, we say that it is a KM positive reaction. So as you can see here, 1 or 2 drops of the solution, and as you can see, there's a red, pinkish kind of colour reaction. And that should happen instantly, really, or up to 10 seconds. Anything after that, we deem this as a false positive. If you apply all the solutions and it doesn't change colour, it is not blood. So this is only a presumptive test, so it's not a confirmatory test. So you cannot say it is 100% blood, because they are false positives in crime scenes, such as rust, horseradish sauce, and there's others as well, which can react in a similar way, which is obviously not blood. So we can only say it is a presumptive test. The chemistry, how it works, is it actually targets the hemoglobin in blood. So when you actually rub and put these stains on, it reacts and oxidizes with the hemoglobin. And when you make KM, it's actually originally pink phenolphthalein, and when it reacts in the presence of blood, it oxidizes this, and that's what produces this colour change. This is a typical exhibit you may face and be asked to look for blood on this item. So this could be a trainer from a suspect who's involved in a serious assault. The first, what we do is take photographs of the actual item, and because this is a white trainer, it is relatively easy to do a visual examination. And what I mean by visual examination is just look with your eyes. You may want to use a torch or a white light to see if it'll help you to locate any visible blood stains or potential blood stains. And you basically can pick the item up. Once you see a stain you would like to test, you use the filter paper like we did with the positive control. Fold it once, fold it twice until you get a point, and you gently rub the filter paper on your suspected stain. You've got to think about this as a destructive technique, so whatever you remove, it's lost. So you want to make sure that there's still something like left behind if you want to send it off for DNA analysis. So once you've rubbed against the filter paper and you can see the red-brown stain on your filter paper, you continue with the KM test, and a couple of drops of the ethanol, a couple of drops of our KM solution, followed lastly by 2 drops of our hydrogen peroxide. And as you can see here, this has gone from a colourless to a pink colour instantly. You would want to take photographs of the stain you tested. You want to kind of repeat the process until the total surface area has been examined. You then update your notes to draw the trainer, add any kind of notes to it. How long did it take to change colour? Maybe 1 second or 10 seconds. We always use red pencil crayon to dictate blood on diagrams in our notes. This is a nice white trainer, but we may get like a dark item or something which is a little bit harder to examine, especially visually. So what we use is our another microscope we use is called a low power microscope, and these are light power microscopes and have a maximum magnification of 40 times magnification. So if you can't see it with your eyes, imagine times in it by 40 times. And that might help you find the blood stains which may be less than 1 millimeter in size. So this is a low power microscope, and this is the focus. And this is kind of like the zoom. So it can go from times 6.3 to times 40 magnification. You get the item and you look under the microscope, and you can move the item whilst looking down and looking very detailed. So you can actually find stains which are like 1 millimeter in diameter, little tiny spots of blood. And once you've located it under the microscope, you can take photographs from down the microscope. But what you can do then, so I've identified here a 1 millimeter blood stain. You get your filter paper, and like I said, fold it in half and half again to get the fine point. And look, whilst looking down the microscope, you've got to be very careful here because this stain is only 1 millimeter in diameter. You kind of want to test this stain, rub against it, but without taking all of it. It's kind of like a really delicate kind of technique. Once you've done this, then you have a small proportion of that stain on this filter paper. The KM test is very, very sensitive. So you only need the tiniest bit of the blood stain. You don't need lots of it. And this would hopefully, that little 1 millimeter blood spot has gone positive. And there's still lots of the blood still remaining on the item, which then we could swab and send off for DNA analysis. And I would then draw this trainer in my notes and denote where these items are. So if the court would like to know where the DNA profile has come from, I can show them on my diagrams, photographs. I can talk about the KM positive reaction. And for a trainer like this would take probably 1 hour to examine the whole surface area, and you're doing it in such a very detailed manner. Well, this is an exhibit, and it's a dark exhibit, and when you visually examine it, there's no visible red-brown staining, no visible possible blood stains. And we have the KM test, but there's another procedure we can use to help us to identify blood, and that is called the KM white test. So how we do this is we firstly do a visual search, and we do examine under the microscope. And if we've still not got nothing to test, this is the next step. So you get your filter paper and you fold it so you've got like a long section here. And you zone the item so you can split it visually in quarters. So this is the front of a long sleeve shirt. What you do, you get the filter paper and you firmly wipe the filter paper across the fabric. You then use your KM kit, so your ethanol, but you have to kind of put many drops to cover the total surface area of our filter paper. And you repeat it, the same sequence with the KM next, and then followed up by the actual hydrogen peroxide. Sometimes you have to kind of move it back forwards and side to side so the whole three solutions have spread across the surface. And when you start getting like little pink reactions, you now know somewhere in that area you have wipes with the filter paper. They could be very, very small flakes of blood. And that's when you can then get your microscope back out and zone in that specific area. If it doesn't change colour and there's no pink staining, you then move on to your next section. And then if there's none, you move on to your next section, and you repeat this process until the whole garment has been examined from front, outside, back, outside, inside, outside. And if you get no reactions after the whole surface area, you can say that there's no blood been found on this item. So it's a negative blood search. However, if you do get some like areas of interest, some small red kind of positive KM positives, it helps you to kind of narrow an area down. And then if that's done, if it's negative for blood, then you can move on to the next exhibit. Thank you for listening to the tutorials today. If you've got any questions about any technical detail or you'd like to speak to us, please contact the module leader, myself, Paul Langton, either on email or Teams, or just pop in, knock on the door and come and see me.